A blonde, a brunette, and a redhead are all stuck on a deserted island together. The island is 20 miles from the nearest inhabited island, so they all decide to try to swim there. The redhead makes it 10 miles, is exhausted, gives up, and drowns. The brunette makes it 15 miles before she's too tired to go any farther and drowns. The blonde gets 19 miles away from the deserted island, decides she's too tired to go any farther, and swims all the way back to the deserted island. "See? I told you I could make it!" A man is in a bar and ready to take a drink of his whiskey when a nun comes up to him and says, "Don't take that drink. That is the devil's brew." The man says that the drink is just whiskey. He asks the nun, "Have you ever tried it?" "You know you shouldn't judge until you at least try it once." The nun says, "Mother Superior told me to never drink the devil's brew, and being a good and faithful servant, I always do as she says." The man says, "You have to at least try one drink. The taste is so smooth. You can't judge it without tasting it. Come on, I will buy you a drink." The nun says, "Fine, but tell the bartender to put it into a cup and grab me a straw. I don't want to be seen drinking that evil brew." The man agrees and goes to the bar to order the drinks. The man says, "Bartender, I want 2 shots of whiskey, but put one in a plastic cup and give me a straw." The bartender shakes his head and says, "Is that drunken nun back in here again?" A first-grade teacher was having trouble with one of her students who was being extremely rude in class. So one day she asked little Johnny what his problem was, and he replied, "I'm too smart for the first grade. My sister is in the 3rd grade, and I'm smarter than her too." The teacher took him to the mister's office and explained the situation to the mister. The mister told her that he would give Johnny a test, and if he failed to answer one question correctly, he would have to go back to the 1st grade and be quiet. The teacher and Johnny both agreed. The mister asked, "What's 3 times 3? Johnny replied, 9. "6 times 6? Asked the mister. 36. Johnny quickly replied. It continued on like this for almost an hour. The mister asked Johnny every question a 3rd grader should know, and he answered them all correctly. Finally, the mister told the teacher, "I see no reason Johnny can't go to the 3rd grade. He answered all of my questions right." The teacher asked if she could ask him some questions. The mister and Johnny agree, so the teacher asks Johnny, "What does a cow have 4 of that I only have 2 of? Legs." Johnny replies. The teacher says, "What do you have in your pants that I don't have?" The mister gasps, but before he can stop him from answering, Johnny says, "Pockets." Then the teacher says, "What does a dog do that a man steps into?" Johnny says, "Pants." Finally, the teacher asks, "What starts with F and ends with K's and means a lot of excitement?" "Fire truck," says Johnny. The mister breathes a big sigh of relief and says, "Put Johnny in the 5th grade. I got the last 4 questions wrong myself." A woman and her friend are visiting the zoo. They are standing in front of the big silverback gorilla's cage when one woman makes a gesture that the gorilla interprets as an invitation. He grabs her, yanks her over the fence, and takes her to his nest in the pen. There he ravishes her and makes passionate love to her for about 2 hours till he is tranquilized and the lady taken to hospital. Her friend, deeply concerned, visits her the next day. "Are you hurt?" she asks. She replies, "Of course I'm hurt. He hasn't called. He hasn't written." A keen duck hunter was looking to buy a new bird dog. His search ended when he found a dog that was able to walk on water in order to retrieve a duck. Amazed by his discovery, he was sure none of his friends would ever believe him. He decided to try and break the news to a friend. An eternal pessimist who was never impressed by anything. In the hope that even he would be impressed by a dog that could walk on water, the pessimist was invited to join the hunter and his dog on a trip to the country. However, the hunter deliberately refrained from mentioning the dog's special talent. He wanted his friend to see for himself. The two men and the dog made their way to a good hunting lake, and as they waited by the shore, a flock of ducks flew overhead. The men fired, and a duck fell. The dog responded and jumped into the water, but instead of sinking, it walked across the water to retrieve the bird, never getting more than its paws wet. This continued throughout the day. Each time a duck fell, the dog walked across the surface of the water to retrieve it. The pessimist carefully watched everything, but did not say a word. Then on the drive home, the hunter casually asked his friend, "Did you notice anything unusual about my new dog?" "I certainly did," replied the pessimist. "He can't swim." A successful businessman flew to Vegas for the weekend to gamble. He lost the shirt off his back and had nothing left but a quarter and the second half of his round-trip ticket. If he could just get to the airport, he could get himself home. So he went out to the front of the casino where there was a cab waiting. He got in and explained his situation to the cab driver. He promised to send the driver money from home. He offered him his credit card numbers, his driver's license number, his address, etc., but to no avail. The cab driver said, "If you don't have $15, get the hell out of my cab." So the businessman was forced to hitchhike to the airport and was barely in time to catch his flight. 1 year later, the businessman, having worked long and hard to regain his financial success, returned to Vegas, and this time he won big. Feeling pretty good about himself, he went out to the front of the casino to get a cab ride back to the airport. Well, who should he see out there at the end of a long line of cabs but his old buddy who had refused to give him a ride when he was down on his luck? The businessman thought for a moment about how he could make the guy pay for his lack of charity, and he hit on a plan. The businessman got in the first cab in the line. "How much for a ride to the airport?" he asked. $15, came the reply. "And how much for you to give me head on the way?" "What?" "Get the hell out of my cab." The businessman got into the back of each cab in the long line and asked the same questions with the same results. When he got to his old friend at the back of the line, he got in and asked, "How much for a ride to the airport?" The cab driver replied, $15. The businessman said, "Okay," and off they went. Then, as they drove slowly past the long line of cabs, the businessman gave a big smile and thumbs up sign to each of the other cab drivers.